is this brief mortal life, if not the pursuit of legacy?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Green and Black. This is Mike, and I am here with Justin. Justin, how are you doing?
Mike, I don't know. I feel a void right now. I'm already feeling the void. I'm wearing black. I know you can't see me. I just want you to know I'm wearing all black because I'm grieving right now. I'm in mourning and I'm grieving. But other than that, I'm feeling great.
So I take it you would not send your teenage son on Dragonback halfway across the country.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That could have been easily an email. An email. An email would have worked, would have did wonders. But clearly, they didn't think otherwise. You know. And Daenerys is definitely my queen, but she should have thought. I don't know. I don't know about that one.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know that she had a lot of good options there. I mean, clearly they needed to send an envoy to, you know, to Storm's End, and
Yeah,
I don't know that just sending a Raven would have been, sufficient. And
yeah,
I mean, boys are young enough, they're old enough to fight at that age.
yeah. That's true. That's very much true. I mean,
And if it was like his job was only to, I mean, honestly, his job was to deliver a message. If Aemon hadn't have been there, it would have been fine.
it would have been definitely fine. It definitely would have worked. Been definitely in poor Lucerys's favor, but
But on
man,
the other hand, when you land your little tiny dragon in the courtyard,
oh man, and you look behind.
and you look and you see the Vigors back there, it's like, oh crap, that's Aemon's car.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Like,
put
oh
you
god,
get you back up and you go home.
you just go home. It's like, not today, not the one. And I don't even know when that scene happened. What picture in my mind was that song? It really feels like somebody's watching me. It's so perfect. That might have to be a TikTok. But yeah, absolutely. When you see that and you know you guys have beef, you have beef with your uncle, and you see that dragon there, that humongous dragon, get yourself out of there, man. It's not worth it. You could have said,
Yeah, it's definitely, there's no way that it's ending well. There's no way that's gonna work. I mean,
absolutely.
you don't need to put yourself in that situation, Luke. You need to remove yourself from that situation. Give the
Absolutely.
little message over to the guard. Say, hey, you know what? It's okay. Just
Yeah,
here.
just
I'm here
pass
for
the heat
that.
post.
I'm
Yeah.
here for that. Give that to your lord. Okay? He can't
Yeah.
read. He can't read it anyway.
Oh, give me.
Why don't you read it to him?
That part to me is hilarious. Like you see this big bold man, big in power. The fact that he can't even read illiterate. Which oddly enough, have you seen the I'm so oblivious to this, but there's a meme with an ongoing meme with Leah Michelle, the lady from Glee.
Right.
They be calling him Boros Leah Michelle because apparently Leah Michelle is also illiterate. When she was doing
Yeah, which has definitely been disproven. But there was that rumor going around
it,
that
my
that she couldn't read. But I mean, she definitely can read.
I
But
see it.
but Lord Boris, they elected him to lead, not to read.
I love that they elected him to read, not to lead, not to read. You know who needs all that? Who needs to read? He just needs his daughters to be married, married off and whatnot. But man, that
Yeah, and it's like Luke, you have a younger brother.
yes, you
Throw his name into the
throw
pot.
his name in. All yes,
Lord Boris, I would be happy to marry one of your lovely daughters, but alas, I am betrothed. But my younger brother Joffrey, he's
he's
available.
single. Ladies, he's single. That's what they think. He's single, ladies. He'll take care of it. Oh, but man, oh man, oh man. That was, what's funny too, because from our conversations, from what I even seen on the internet, I knew that this was gonna happen. Like the storms, that was the big foreshadow I've been told, but nothing prepared me for that. What I saw there, and that just it really wrecked me. It made me really understand people. Well, forewarning, if you're getting into Game of Thrones, whoever's the nicest, whoever doesn't want any type of power, whoever is true, that speaks the truth,
I
just
don't want it. I
don't
don't
want
want it.
I don't want it. just know that they're not gonna last long. Something crazy is gonna happen to them. I have to really cement that in my mind that if you have one of those type of characteristics, that you're not gonna last. You're gonna go out in such a vicious way. And sure
Yeah, well,
enough,
I mean, to be fair, this is the House of Dragon. I mean, this is fire and blood. I mean,
well, now it is.
yeah, like literally almost everybody's going to be dead in a couple of years. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you watch spoiler, if you watch Game of Thrones, you see there's only like 2 or 3 Targaryens left within the world, so something's gonna go down, and I just, Mike, I just want, and this definitely contradicts what you just said, but I just want everybody just to put down the swords, put down the dragons, and hug it out. Why can't they just hug it out, huh? And live
well,
happy ever
to
after.
be fair, like that's kind of what Rhaenyra was trying to do. And
He's not.
I just want to point out like the the absolute brilliance of the way that they wrote this. Um, and because if you look at episode 9 and episode 10, there's so many parallels. I mean, they're almost the same episode, just
I love
from
it.
the other side,
Yes.
right?
I was
Here
like,
you have this strong woman, this queen, who is basically at a table surrounded by men telling her that she has to go to war, and she's trying to find the peaceful way out, whether it's Allison saying things like, a queen needs to count the cost to her people,
yeah,
or Rhaenyra saying, I'm not going to be the queen of ash and
yes,
blood.
beautiful.
I mean, they're both, the fact that Rhaenyra is like taking a beat when Otto. Can we talk about Otto? We'll talk about Otto in
Ah,
a minute.
ah! Don't get me
When
started on him.
when Otto comes and presents terms to her, and Damon's ready to like cut Otto's head off,
Just parallel to
and
episode 2.
and Rhaenyra is kind of like, well, let's take a beat and think about this because my job was to unite the kingdom, not to put the kingdom into war. And, maybe the best course of action here is for me to just say, is for me to bend the knee and unify the kingdom. I mean, you know, that's something that none of those men would have done. Um,
I think maybe me thinking as a man in that aspect, I feel like as I was like, why would she do that? Like, there's no way. Like, that was given to you by your father. Like, you have that's every that succession is every right of yours. It's not of your brother. But I get what you're saying though. She definitely was. And you know who noticed that too? The queen who never was, Queen Princess Renee.
well, that's the point. As you have these two queens who are standing around and with these men telling them they need to go to war and they're trying to find a way of peace, and Renice is there in both cases kind of surveying and watching what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah, absolutely.
And you notice, I mean, she did not, when
That was
that coronation happened, she did not bow. She did not go
so.
down on one
What are
knee.
your thoughts in regards to that? Because I'm hearing different things.
Well, because I think she at that point she's still evaluating, and she still
Yeah,
hasn't decided.
yeah. Well, she mentioned that too. She's, I'm gonna have to be back with my husband Corlius.
Right, and she
Until
is
he is.
not one. She's not one to bend the knee if she's not committed to that.
But
You know,
makes you think though, like because it looked like to me she's at least 70% Team Black in that moment. Because if she wasn't, she would never did what she did in the previous episode. With that big blow up scene, and then actually going off to tell Rhaenyra about what the plans with the Greens were. Which, by the way,
no, I think she definitely was leaning that way, but I
yeah,
think she also, she looked Allison in the eye
she
and
sure
took a
did.
measure of her.
She sure did.
And then I think she wanted to go to Dragonstone and look Rhaenyra in the eye and take a measure of her,
Okay, okay,
before she decided which way she was going to fall. And I think she also needed to, see which way the wind was blowing with Corliss.
yeah. Because
He is after all, the the Lord of Driftmark. So,
yeah,
his what he says goes, even though she freaking eviscerated him as soon as he woke up from his
oh,
coma,
she went in on him. She's like,
and he deserved it.
he sure did, because he definitely left her out of nowhere to go fight his own personal war and whatnot. But yeah. Can we just talk about how she's a savage, by the way? And I mean that in a good way. Like first of all, that last episode where her on the dragon in action in her armor suit, I was like, wow, that definitely was a different show. No, they showed it in such a different and a cool light in that regard. But the way she came in, she reminded me of Bran from that horrible season 8. We don't have time. She straight up cut through all the the cute gestures and said, "Listen, your father's dead, and they're coming for you and your children. That's all."
Exactly. Yeah. We don't have time to mess around with the
We don't have
pleasantries and
time.
the niceties
Yeah,
and whatever. They're coming for you,
they're coming for
and
you.
you know, and they were coming for her.
They
If it hadn't been for Allison, I mean, Otto was ready. Otto was ready to go and be like, he said to Sir Harold, like, take your Kingsguard, go to Dragonstone, make it quick, make it clean.
Yes, yes.
There was no question about what he was ordering, Sir Harold to do. And Damon is no better than that, really. On the other side, he's just like
Oh,
ready to, his wife's in there giving birth, and he's like, I'm going to Harrenhal, I'm going to the Riverlands,
I'm shutting his
send the
arm
ravens out,
down.
yeah. So and I think that's kind of the thing that they've thrown into the show that's not in the book is this dichotomy between these men and these women,
Mm,
and how these women are struggling against this patriarchy,
yeah,
and maybe they have a better way, maybe. And I think that's what Rhaenyra is trying, Rhaenys is trying to find her way through. One where she says to Allison, have you ever thought about being, taking the Iron Throne?
that was epic.
And and now looking at Rhaenyra and realizing that Rhaenyra was not going to take the opportunity. She could have very easily killed Otto and everybody,
Yeah,
and Rhaenyra didn't. And the fact that Rhaenyra, took a beat to sit there and say, "Well, what's the best thing for me to do? What's best for the realm?" That struck a chord with Rhaenys.
I feel like the Targaryen. Well, in this case, Rhaenyra, she parallels a little bit. I don't know. She shows restraint. I was gonna say Daenerys, but we know what happens in there. She definitely shows a lot of restraint. And I feel like no, I forget about. And Daenerys going back to that, she showed restraint too. But when you push them to the edge, it's like the song "Don't Push Me." I'm messing that song up. Close to the edge. When you push them to the edge, they're gonna bite back. They're not
Well,
gonna settle
they
for
are dragons. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
definitely. And like it's like I feel like we're gonna see, even though that happens in the future, we're gonna see aspects of like the Mad King. So I think we're gonna see aspects of the Mad Queen within Rhaenyra. Like I love that last scene of the season 1 of the finale, where you see the pain, you see the anger, and you see just the bloodlust for vengeance, and then of Rhaenyra, and then within the background, you see the fire. She's gonna burn some stuff. She's gonna burn. Ooh, actually,
yeah,
my
and it's
own
very,
place.
and then, there's been a lot of memes going around this week.
I
The
love it.
picture,
Yes,
that picture, and the picture of Daenerys
I love it.
Right after they killed Missandei. I mean, it's the same energy. It's the same
Absolutely.
big dragon energy, and yeah, and I think depending on how in the book, like, Rhaenyra is a terror. Like, Rhaenyra goes ham on everybody and does not hold back at all.
By the way, I
And
started the book. I
you
started
did?
it. I did. I skipped to where the Dance of the Dragon is, and I am gonna go
Okay.
back once I read it. And let me tell you something,
Yeah,
Mike.
because the stuff on the Conquest is actually really interesting.
Yeah, I like to know the history and stuff like that. But I'm very impatient. When I found out that's gonna be 2024 possibly for this next season, I need to know what happened, and no spoilers from me at least. But oh my goodness, this is some wild stuff. I can't wait to see this take place like in actual scenes. But it's so these people are petty,
They
petty.
are. No, they are, absolutely. And
It's like back
you
to
know,
back to back. I'm like, oh
yeah,
my
and
goodness.
if you go down the list of, like, people who are killed, and it's a long list. In the But there's a lot of like killing each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like this person, A killed by B killed by A. It's like there's a lot of these fights going on where like both sides lose,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and so this is and that's kind of the point of this. I think is like there's no winning here. You
Yeah,
know, there may be a victory, but nobody wins because
I feel like
just
that's
like just like when Renice came up out of the dragon pit, and probably killed a few thousand people. You know, the small folk are always the ones who are going to pay the price.
yeah. It's
If
always a consequence.
if and when 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 the sack of King's Landing happens, people are going to die. And
Yeah,
when, other towns fall in this war, people are going to die. And, it's not just the nobles and the knights and the soldiers, it's the small folk as well. And I think that's, what Rhaenyra and Alicent were hoping to avoid, but obviously it's going to happen.
yeah. That's always gonna end. It reminds me of Thanos with his quest to get the power of the Infinity Stones. He had to sacrifice a lot just to get that power. So I'm looking at now watching this show. It's like, okay, it's they want the Iron Throne, they want the succession, they want the power of being like the heir, the king or the queen, but at what cost? Because obviously, if it's a civil war, like you just said, I'm just repeating what you're saying, but there's a lot of loss on both sides, and it's crazy because towards the end, I'm assuming I haven't finished the book, I don't know the full ending, but I'm assuming what's all that's left you can have the throne, but I mean, you don't have. It's kind of like what Lucerys said early in the early episodes. If I become the Lord of Driftmark, then that means everyone's dead. Like if I'm gonna have this throne, but everyone's dead, then what's the good of it? I'm not gonna. How am I gonna be able to enjoy it?
Right. So by the time the Dance of Dragons ends and the person who winds up on the throne is on the throne, it's like you gotta you gotta think about what it took to get them
Yeah,
there, and how many people were in line before that person, you
yeah.
know, um, to get to that point. But there's also I'm glad, and there's a lot of, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but there's a lot of callbacks even to the beginning of the show, and
Hmm.
I think that's why like this season was so much better written than even a lot of the seasons of Game of Thrones, is because
Whoa,
it's real. I
you
would
went
say
there.
like Game of Thrones had better episodes
Yeah,
and like better moments and like more scope,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think like the through lines, and I'll point one out later when we talk about like the dragon battle, like the through lines through this um, are really really profound,
Mm.
and how consistent they are to the story that they're trying to tell, I think is really profound. And I mean, and some of these acting performances in this thing
Oh,
are as
oh my goodness.
between Patty Considine,
Yes,
as
yes,
Viserys, and Emma Darcy,
yes.
playing Rhaenyra in these last three episodes. I mean, it's just
She
she's
outstanding,
fantastic. She's amazing.
fantastic.
I
Don't forget Matt
they
Smith too, though,
yeah,
and
they're amazing.
Olivia. Oh, yeah, I can't. I just can't pick. They're all they rose to the occasion. And I was really nervous when they first introduced they're making a House of Dragon because I'm a diehard Game of Thrones fan. That to me, Game of Thrones is my favorite show series of all time, and that's largely due in part because of the acting. Like you see people like Nikolai, I don't know his last name. The guy who plays Jamie and then
Yeah.
Cersei. They did they set the bar for me. Oh, and don't forget my boy Peter Dinklage. That's
No, I'm not saying
no,
I'm not diminishing anything that
yeah.
anybody did in Game of Thrones. There's some amazing performances in Game of
No, I'm
Thrones.
agreeing with you because I was
Yeah,
I just
but
had
I'm saying what
but they did the thing.
Patty
Yeah,
Considine, what he did with that role of Viserys,
yes,
who's really not that informed of a role really in the
yeah,
book.
Very like
and he's basically like, Viserys said this, Viserys said that, Viserys said that, and that's really all there is in the book. And
yeah.
what he was able to bring to that role is amazing. And Emma Darcy, what they were able to
Oh
do
my goodness.
with Rhaenyra and really turn that character
Oh,
into, like, because in the book Rhaenyra is kind of a one note character, and Emma really made
she
that
really did.
character complex, multi-layered, multifaceted. I mean, it's really amazing what they were able to do with that role.
Yeah, like I
And
really do.
that birth of the three birthing scenes,
Oh,
you know, in this in
I was
this
hoping you were about to
show.
go there.
I mean, that birthing scene was like crazy.
That was wild. And let me for the record, I will never watch that scene again. That scene will forever be fast forward. I can't. It gets one watch through for me, and that's it. That's just oh. But yeah, that was wild. And she really did. She did an amazing job. Like that, you could feel, I felt like I was feeling the pain. I'm just watching. She knows that performance was incredible. Blew my mind.
Yeah, it really did. We had the return of Corlys, and I gotta say, it was kind of profound and interesting. When that first conversation with him and Renice, you know, and he makes, yeah, again, and this is one of those parallels. It's like early on, like the first thing we heard, in that first trailer, which was, repeated in a later episode, which he said in a later episode, where he's like, what is this brief mortal life but a quest for legacy, but a search for legacy? And the fact that when she's talking about, you know, the children and our blood, and he says, history doesn't remember blood, it remembers
Remembers
names.
names. I love
You
that.
know, like
That's
he's had this consistent thing all along where even when he's negotiating with Viserys and he's like, okay, we're going to do this
last
marriage.
name.
Whose name
Yeah,
is it going to be? And are we going to follow the Westerosi custom of the woman taking the man's name? He wanted to make sure that, that name. I mean, that's been his through line all along, is this idea of legacy and this idea of being remembered through his name.
yeah,
Um, and that conversation that they had. But he was another one who had, he had to just walk into that room and look Rhaenyra in the eye and make a decision as to what he was going to do. And
I think that was played largely in part though also due to his granddaughters. I think he's seen. I think both. It could have been a little play on Rhaenyra's part, but they both seen how she treated both Bela and Rhaena. I hope I'm saying their name.
Rhaena, yeah.
Yeah, and making her like a cupbearer, and then making them a
Well,
part.
well, the fact that she brought them in,
Yeah,
when she walks
that's very
into that
intimate.
room, when she walks into the room where the painted table is,
Oh,
and she just like motions to them to walk with her and stand at the end of
yeah,
the table with her, like
absolutely.
you're gonna be part of this.
Yeah,
I need
and
I need women's voices at this table,
whew, yeah, that's awesome. I like that. Yeah, I love that, and I
and
love
I do think that Corliss saw that, and I definitely know that Renee
Bernice.
saw that.
She definitely, yeah. She knows how to play the right chords with them. Make it arranging the marriage between Jason and Lucerys amongst them as well too. I think that definitely played a big part. And also due to the fact that I just realized those are still also Damon's children. So just that as well as there's respect for that as well. But yeah, I think Rhaenyra overall, like as you can see that she's not used. Like I think it was so unexpected for her to take on the role as queen, and it seems at first she seems a little bit nervous, but I think she fits the role really well. And yes, I sound biased, Mike. I don't know. Can you guess what team I'm on already? How I'm talking?
Well, you're in the same team I'm on, so that's fine.
The only team that matters.
And it's another thing that I have to hand to them is because if you read the book, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the book like kind of clearly leans Team Green. At least in the way, like if you look at the way that the book paints Rhaenyra, especially,
Mm.
um, compared to the way it paints Allison, I mean, it's definitely kind of green leaning, and I think the show is a lot more balanced and a lot more, um, there's good and there's bad on both sides,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
these women, are at their heart they are. Um, in a lot of ways better people than the men around them,
Yeah,
especially especially the two strong men, Damon and Otto.
you can't. You should be using the term strong loosely like that.
Well,
'Cause you have me thinking something else.
I meant that as a compliment.
Strong boys. They're all the
But
type of.
let's talk about Otto. Let's talk about the
Ah,
stones on this
do we
guy
have to?
showing up on Dragonstone himself.
The audacity of him. He's so full of himself. I'm sorry. By the way, the actor who's portraying Otto, I think he's doing a phenomenal job because he's making me feel like Joffrey when you really
Yeah,
see somebody's.
no, Ian Rafe is definitely doing a great job. But the fact that Otto like comes himself to bring the terms,
Yes.
is man, it's a lot of stones on that boy.
Yeah, and I feel like they've been warning Viserys for so long, and he did listen to an extent. Because why would he bring him back? They said you don't trust homeboy. Like I know you claim that's your best friend and stuff, but this man got some hidden agendas, and it was fully revealed the moment Viserys breathes.
Not really all that hidden.
Yeah, I know. Especially like when he said when he that second time around in this last episode where he came in, he just let it all loose. The cards were all on the table at this point, and I just wanted Damon so bad just to go over there and slice his head off like he did Corvus' brother Vaemon. But lastly, we couldn't. I mean, he wanted to, but Rhaenyra she held.
Rhaenyra, yeah, no, Rhaenyra definitely stopped him. I mean, that was definitely his plan.
No, fire and blood. I was supposed to say fire and blood, chick. Fire and blood. Do it before it gets crazy.
But I mean, but how about her? I mean, here she is, like,
Oh, that
you
was
know,
funny too.
a day after giving birth, and she's on a dragon and flying around and like,
She is. She's tough. She shows that to me shows that she has strength. That she's willing, despite all that she knows. She heard the news of her father's passing, then the loss of her child, where she had to take care. I think, if I'm not mistaken, she even did the burial practice of that child. That's emotional. That's a lot of stuff. And like you said, for her to still be willing to take on the dragon and to confront Autumn and then take away his little hand of the pen and throw it in the ocean, I give her tons of props for that. Tons of props. But Otto's trifling again because Otto, it was such a good move. Like, and I think it was between Otto and Allison when he gave Rhaenyra that piece of paper, which was from I think episode one, where she tore out of the study book that Allison was reading, which reminded me when I seen that scene of the friendship that she and Allison once had and whatnot. So I look like to me, like you say, for the sake of the friendship or what you guys once had, reconsider. There don't need to be no bloodbath.
yeah, and that's another throwback to episode one. You had the birth, you had, and then you have this one where it's like, um, this whole situation that's in, and Otto and everything, and it's really, it's really interesting, and Damon's just kind of being Damon, man, and just doing like his own
In Damon's
thing,
form.
and good on Jace, who comes in and is just like, you should do no such thing, and like
Yep.
trying to stand up to Damon, and Damon's just like, oh jeez, what is with this kid, and it's like,
Like mess
you
up
know
the 5.
yeah, go do what I told you to do,
Yeah.
and then he has that moment with the knights out on the beach where he's like,
Oh yeah, that was wild.
you can You could declare now. You could take the knee, or you could declare now, or if you're with Alicent, then you'll die quick. It's cool,
He said, "You will die screaming." That blew my mind. He said, "You know what? You could do a quick and that whole scene, that whole quote to me is really good." And he says, "If you choose to take on Allison outside me tingling right now, you have a quick and painless death, you know. But if you choose to take on Rhaenyra, and then later I see you turn your back, you will die screaming." And it brought me all back to Daenerys with my boy Varys, and that paid off. So I'm like, oh, I wonder if this is gonna pay off with these two knights, because that means if not one or the other is gonna betray, if we're gonna see a situation like that. I don't know, but I think that's my prediction on that. Maybe in season 2, because I know people say, at least in the books, there's quite a few betrayals, and I think some of it happens early on. So I'm wondering that's gonna be paid off in season 2 already.
there is some changing sides,
That's
back and
one.
forth,
That's one.
including one that's really surprising.
Really?
Um,
Don't do that, Mike. Oh my gosh, that's I want for the next 2 years. I don't want to
yeah,
know
there's
in my
there
mind.
there's one that's really surprising, and then there's one at the very end that's actually kind of baffling. Um, but
Ooh.
we'll just leave that at that. Um,
I'm gonna have to read this book. See. I was planning on going to bed after this podcast, but now I'm gonna probably be up to 2 o'clock in the morning reading this book, just trying to figure out who's done what and why. Oh, okay. I can't wait.
yeah. So, but I think let's talk about what we're all here to talk about,
Oh boy.
and you know
All right.
the Battle of Stormbreaker Bay, the
Here we go.
the the opening moves of the Dance of Dragons, the thing that really kind of got stuff kicked off. Um, and Jason Amond, and so I mean I'm assuming you knew going in what was going to happen.
Yes, the internet is a blessing and a curse. I was sadly I was spoiled on that a few times. Beyond the internet, so I knew. My poor family, they did not know, so they were making comments. Oh, he's gonna be safe and sound and stuff. And in my mind, like, oh, you guys don't have a clue what's gonna happen. And sure enough, when that happened, it was a very sombering moment in the Phillips household. It was very yeah, it was not a good place to be, good environment to be at that moment.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah. I
hard.
mean, even and even though that I knew what was going to happen, obviously, but even that in the book is like really, it's only like a couple of sentences, like it's not
Yeah,
even really brought out, and
they
this
changed
whole
it.
this whole sequence was so well done.
It was that every time I think about it, I think about when he's in the air in the rain. You see the lightning. When the lightning comes, you see that silhouette of Vagar that just overshadows what's his name, Arex.
Eric's, yeah.
Eric's. That scene to me, that was art. That was a
That
masterpiece to me.
shot's one of the best FX shots I've seen in a very long time.
Absolutely.
And but that whole bit of it's just shadows and clouds and lightning, and you're not really sure
That
where
was a
she's coming
true,
from, and what she's gonna do, and
yeah, it was a true thriller. That was
yeah,
I was watching a thriller at that moment. I was watching a thriller movie. It was very like, oh my goodness, really, won't they? And it was very scary. Then you hear Eamon with his little chants and screams. It was very uncomfortable for me to watch, which I felt like they did an excellent job, like to provoke those type of emotions that I was feeling, of anxiety, of fear, which I felt a lot of both for them. I felt like, okay, this is good. Like, of course, I did not want the things to happen, but how they portrayed that, that's how you direct an episode. That's how you make an episode. That's how you do what you do. That very sad, but it was good.
I thought it was really interesting that they took the tack of making it like it was the dragons,
Oh,
that that you know that it was really like Eric's and Vagar who were fighting, and the boys were just kind of along for the
Masterful.
ride, so to
All
speak.
damage.
And that's the third callback really to that first season episode, that first episode. Because there was that moment
Go ahead.
where Viserys takes Rhaenyra down to the
Yes.
catacombs, and they're standing in front of Balerin's skull, and he's like, you know, people think of us like gods because we have dragons,
Yeah.
but the idea that we control the dragons is an illusion.
Yes.
This is a power that man, that humans should have never trifled with.
Everyone says Targaryens are closer to gods than to men, but they say that because of our dragons. Without them, it's like everyone else.
The idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. They are a power man should never have trifled with. One that brought Valyria its doom. If we don't mind our own histories, it would do the same to us. Targaryen must understand this to be king. Or queen.
This is an example of that. It's like,
Oh,
they
perfect.
can yell all the Valerian they want. They don't control these dragons,
don't.
especially an
And
old
Daenerys
bitch
said it too.
like Vagar. It's like they're gonna do what they do, and these. I mean, what are dragons? But they exist to fight and burn stuff.
But, I feel like
Go ahead.
I feel like Eric's he was just only way, he's frightened. That was like a fight or flight type of situation for him. So he ultimately it was a fatal mistake on his behalf, blowing that hot breath on Vagar. And because Vagar is so experienced, this dragon is hundreds of years old, experienced tons of battles. It recognized that as a threat, and it took care of the threat. But it might be like I feel like that's gonna be a big major over theme. Like that's what we're gonna see throughout the series is the theme of dragons not being slaves. Like Daenerys said it in that famous episode where she tried to give that slave guy her dragon in exchange for the men, and she said dragon's not a slave. I feel like we're gonna see that come a lot in regards to these upcoming episodes and seasons of House of the Dragon. I feel like that particular battle right there, like you said, was the perfect way to explain it. It's like you don't have no control over these dragons. These dragons are gonna. Somebody said it. I think he said it too. Viserys said it too. Like ultimately, the only real threat amongst the House of Dragon is itself. And I feel like that's what it's gonna be. Like the ultimate threat of these dragons are themselves, and they're gonna take each other out. Very powerful. That just really blows my mind. It's just so I'm definitely gonna be looking at that as I rewatch these episodes, as I await these new episodes coming on in the next few years. It's just how these dragons going to really be, and who can best fake it till they make it. These dragon riders.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's absolutely like a great point. Is that it's another throwback to that point where Daenerys had basically bought the Unsullied
Yes.
From Kresnis for the price of a dragon, and he's
I love
trying to
that.
yell at the dragon, and
Yes.
she says a dragon is not a slave.
And she spoke that high Valerian to him.
Valerian is my mother tongue.
Yes, that's one of my favorites. Cause she's so restrained in that order. He let that guy talk all that smack to her in that language, and then when the time was right, she let it know. And I feel like we're gonna see that, especially in these upcoming in this next season coming up. Like we're gonna see. I feel like Rhaenyra's gonna, when the time is right, she's gonna make her move, and that move is gonna be well noted. She's coming for blood. She's coming for fire and blood.
Oh, she's definitely coming for blood, and the couple of opening moves are pretty brutal.
I finally no one. I'm not gonna spoil, but I read the infamous blood and
cheese. Blood cheese.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that's like what I was thinking. Like either this battle or that was gonna end the season.
and that would have
Yeah.
definitely. I feel like they should have put that. That now I'm looking at, they should have put that as well. In this season as well, that could have been like maybe like episode that could have been that what we just saw in episode 10 could have definitely been a perfect episode 9 penultimate episode. Because like I said, oh my goodness, can that really just happen? Like a WTF type of moment, and then seeing that blood and cheese in situation as a cliffhanger, and that to me would have been. But you know what?
Well,
I
what?
I was gonna say I think I'm just gonna wait to see how they're gonna portray that out, because you know what, that's gonna be a crazy first, because it has to be the first episode coming up, because there's no
Yeah. But I think I understand why they wouldn't do that. Well, for a couple of reasons. One is they haven't really set that up, like who those guys are. But
uh,
also, um, like that would drastically change your viewpoint on Rhaenyra.
oh absolutely,
And I think you don't want to go into a long break like that, like
like when that bad, yeah, have that type
with
of
with
thing.
with that kind of thing going on. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
that makes sense, Mike. The way you just said that makes sense with me. Okay, and I can definitely see that, because I really, right now, I really do sympathize with Rhaenyra. Like, I really want her to do what she needs to do, because what happened there was
Yeah.
trifling.
You know,
And
like if they had done this whole season, and like this whole season was like 100% like Rhaenyra's the good guys and the Greens are the bad guys, and then at that last moment you have Rhaenyra do that heel turn, like that's one thing. But there's been so much balance this season
yeah,
between Rhaenyra and Allison that I don't, you can't really do that kind of a thing.
and
Um,
I think they learn they learn from mistakes from Game of Thrones. Like they really paint, like Daenerys, Donnie, she definitely had some gray moments, and then as the later season, it starts to build up a little bit more. But then that infamous episode, the penultimate episode where she destroys the whole thing. That was such a, I mean, it made sense, but the way they went about it, it was such a big left turn, and it literally left us a large distaste, and a lot of people, myself included, like our mouths in our regards to perception of Daenerys. So I see what you're saying in regards to Rhaenyra, that if they would have put what's gonna happen later on, people definitely that would definitely destroy a lot of people's perceptions per se. And like,
yeah, I'm gonna push back a little bit on that. And I've seen this argument online a lot, and a lot of people were kind of like, always like, oh, I can't believe Rhaenyra would do that, and blah blah blah, and they made her into this thing, and I'm like, they've been setting up Daenerys from like season 4 to burn King's Landing. I
I,
mean,
for the record, I
she
I
she was always going to burn King's
I
Landing.
said that. I've had arguments with people. I'm sorry. I'm getting really passionate and loud, because I called it seasons ago. I said this, the way she's acting, the way she's doing certain things. I'm like, that reminds me a lot like her father. Like, she's really acting like her father. I know that's what she's not trying to be, but people try to shut me down. They said, no, 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 I'll never happen. And I remember Varys and Tyrion having a conversation about Daenerys and about her possibility. Well, she still didn't do nothing yet. She just did some stuff on the radar, but I was like, pay attention. And lo and behold, look what happened, Mike. I'm sorry. I got triggered for a second. Forgive me, everybody.
That's okay. But I mean, as I'm like, let's go back through a little history where she, stood by while Drogo killed her brother.
Yep,
What she did, like to Zero and to the warlocks in
yep.
Karth. What she did to Krasny's, what she did to the good masters. Crucifying all the
I was
masters.
gonna say
You
that.
know
Absolutely.
what she did to burning all the Khals. I mean, in the Temple of the Dashkaleen. I mean,
Crazy.
this is not a stable woman.
She is crazy.
And you know
And
and
you know what
I
it
and
is?
I think people, I think people read, and I think the problem is that in the later seasons, they pushed a little too hard to make her sympathetic, so that it kind of hid what she was going to do. Like, we liked her too much,
Oh yeah,
and
like we really thought of
and
her as the savior of that show.
right, and
She's the person that was
people
brilliant.
mistook, like, in the episode you're talking about in the bells, like, people like mistook. So there's the scene where she comes in on the dragon and she lands on the wall,
Yes,
and
I know exactly.
and the bells are ringing,
Yep.
because Tyrion has gotten everybody to ring the bells, which is basically like the people of King's Landing surrendering, and she stops and she hesitates,
Yes.
and then she goes and she burns the city, and it's like people were like, I think a lot of people were looking at it just like, oh, she was stopping and the bells drove her to crazy. And it's like, no, she got up that morning, ate her Wheaties, and went to go burn King's Landing.
You started to see
And
it was within her. It was her every
and the
part of
bell and the bells gave her pause, you know, and made her doubt herself for a minute. And then she looked, because you see, then she looks at the Red Keep, and like she refocuses on what she got up that morning to do, and then she went and did it. You know, she was always going to burn King's Landing. It would have made no sense if she didn't burn King's
You
Landing.
know what though? I noticed something, especially with the queens, with all the queens in both House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. Well, maybe a little bit exception of Cersei a little bit, but I'm gonna still put her in here. They do have some type of restriction. They do have some type of hold. Like we see them saying that. Rhaenyra and Daenerys, both families said that they would not be Queen of the Ashes, right? And Cersei, she did her stuff, but she was holding back, and that's because they had a support system. They had truly loved ones. They had their children. Children was definitely their saving grace. I feel like when they lost that, like when Daenerys lost Jorah, when she lost Melisandre, when she lost her two dragons, when Cersei lost her children, she went crazy. They all went crazy, and then now Rhaenyra, I'm assuming the moment that she lost poor Luke, she looked like she's about to. She did the same face as Daenerys, and we knew what happened in the next episode. So I that's something I really noticed, and I'm paying attention now. I definitely can't wait to see season 2 how she does. She's gonna act out, but when they lose their support, they lose the people who will like bring them back and say, "Hey, hold on, calm down now," or something like that, or reasons for them to restrain. They're unhinged and they are letting loose. They went from 0 to 100. Fortunately, there's consequences for all those actions, And I'm thinking
Yeah,
about
no, absolutely. And I think, while we're talking about Daenerys, there's this other thing that I was thinking about, like, today, where it was like, I'm thinking about, like, Rhaenys, Rhaenyra and Allison, and they're standing around these tables, with these men around them, and you know, and I thought back to that season 7 episode of Game of Thrones
oh
Olenna Tyrell meets Daenerys, you
yes,
know, and she's like, oh, a clever man in your hand. I've met a lot of clever men, and I've outlived them all. You know why?
yes,
Because I ignore them.
yes.
You know, and it's almost the same thing. It's like, look, we're women. We're the ones who should be ruling this thing.
Yeah.
But then she turns it around. Like at the end of that very same conversation, she's like, the lords of Westeros are sheep. Are you a sheep, or you're a dragon? Be a dragon.
Dragon.
Will you take a bit of advice from an old woman? He's a clever man, your hand. I've known a great many clever men. I've outlived them all. You know why? I ignored them. The lords of Westeros are sheep. Are you a sheep? No. You're a dragon. Be a dragon.
Do this thing that you're supposed to do, and that's what Daenerys went out and did. But I think that the writers didn't do the work to get there. It's like they didn't show their work. They just kind of went on this foregone conclusion, like they knew that Daenerys was always going to burn King's Landing, so they assumed that everybody else knew
Yeah.
that Daenerys was always going to burn King's Landing, and it didn't really
Assume.
work out. Like these guys are, and there are women in this writers' room as well, which they didn't really have in Game of Thrones, are being a lot more careful in the work that they and showing their work. You know what I'm saying? And like taking us along step by step and laying all these foundations, whether it's Corlys, whether it's Viserys, whether whoever it is, laying all these foundations so that when it comes back at the end, everything kind of like makes sense. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
that makes sense. It's a woman's touch.
It is a woman's touch, and you know that was something that was missing. I was watching, like I watched an early episode of Game of Thrones last night. I watched Blackwater, and I'm like,
Uh-oh.
but I'm like, and I had forgotten like how much like how much sex there
Yeah,
was in
they
like the early
did.
episodes and stuff, and it's like we could tell the stories without that,
Yeah.
and but also like even in later seasons, like how some of the women did things that didn't really make sense,
Yeah.
um and so I think having women in the writers room in this show is really, and especially since you have a show about two strong women, like I don't know that a man could have written that birth scene.
No, I don't
You
think so.
know, it would have looked completely different.
There'd been a lot of mansplaining, and that would have been a big turnoff.
Exactly.
It's like, no, this is house, but no, just cancel.
Yeah, it would have just been like you know easy peasy, right? Because that's how birth works. You
Yeah.
know.
And that makes me honestly, yeah, the way they portray that, oh my goodness, makes me relieved that I don't have to go through that. But yeah, I think that yeah, I'm with you on that.
I
And then
thought it was interesting that they chose to have Damon. We need to talk about Damon too.
oh, I go like I go back and forth with him, man. I go back and
And
forth.
I think that's the point. And it's kind of like one of these things. It's like, it's like,
I'm scared.
it's almost like the producers like. And I read an interview with one of the writers, and they're like I don't get why people like this guy so much. He's a
That's how
sociopath.
that
you
yeah,
know, it's like we're not writing him. We're not writing him to be a nice guy,
yeah,
and and he, I mean, the guy like murders his first wife.
yes.
But he's like probably willing to murder Rhaenyra's wife, or Rhaenyra's husband.
Oh yeah, he
You
was willing
know,
to do that.
he puts on his little murder suit and his little murder hood and
That
goes
little
out and
quote.
does whatever he's gonna do. And you know, and then like today, like in this episode, like she calls for him and you can hear it and he ignores her and like
Yeah,
continues to make his war plans. And I guess I kind of get that. I mean, you know, he was in the room with his wife, when
of his previous
of his marriage, like when she died in childbirth, and he was called in the room to make the same decision that his brother had to make,
yeah,
and he probably didn't want to. He's like, no, I'm good. I don't want any part of that. I'm not going to be up in that room,
the
you know.
PTSD.
Exactly,
Yeah,
So I kind of get that. And then but then he doesn't like really like. Obviously, Jace is there with a message from his mother, and he's basically ignoring it and doing what he's going to do. And then there's this scene, this pivotal scene where
oh boy,
she starts to ask. She's like, no, I need to hold the realm together. I need to, I need to have us together to protect us from, the threat. And he's like, what are you talking about? And it's like when, and I could just see it in him, like
mm,
this, like, why didn't I know this thing? You know, if
yeah,
I was my brother's heir for a while, why do I not know this?
and that had to be a blow for
That had to
him.
be a huge blow, and especially given this fraught relationship that he had with his brother. where Daemon clearly loved Viserys, and Viserys
Yeah,
clearly loved Daemon,
I felt, yeah.
but they had their issues and they had their problems. And I think it's very similar to what's going on with Aegon and Aemond, where it's like
Ooh,
the
interesting.
younger brother's like,
Parallel.
I should be the king, I'm the stronger, because a lot of people thought Viserys of Viserys as being weak,
Yeah, yeah.
and so you know and I think, but to come to this realization that, well, I was, Viserys never really trusted me because he would have told me this
Yeah, and she
thing,
realized that.
if this is the most important thing there is, and he never told me this, and he told Rhaenyra
Yeah,
when she was a little girl,
a woman
you
at that.
know,
Yeah,
and the fact that she uses that back at him, she kind of sneers at him a little bit. It's
yeah.
like,
She talked.
you didn't know,
You didn't know. He did.
and I'm not justifying what he did, it's choking her, but it's understandable, this moment that he had where like everything's crumbling down around him, and then all of a sudden, like, to find out this really deep betrayal, because his wife never told him either until this moment.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a big, big, big foreshadow. At least within their dynamics. I feel like Damon is not to be trusted. I feel like he looked at the scenario about Rhaenyra marrying her, or her being the heir, like on paper, and he was for it. But now that it's actually come to pass in action, like I think he's trying his best to be about it, but he sees so much friction. They've been going butting heads with, especially with these decisions and whatnot. And these is like life and death situations. You see a little conflict between him and Jace, and then that infamous scene where he's choking her like that. That was just an act of, like, oh, so yeah. I said this is not gonna work out like anytime soon. That's why I feel like this is gonna brew up to be something much worse. It's just, yeah, it threw me off, and just like you said, just the realization of the betrayal that with Viserys telling Rhaenyra and not telling Daemon. That's gonna mess with his mind, and that's gonna, I don't know. I think he's gonna still try to do his best, but I feel like this could be a slip up, and there might be a little mini civil war amongst the civil war, a civil war within the civil war.
Yeah, well, there's definitely. I mean, I would imagine there's definitely going to be splits and factions, and like I said, there's definitely going to be people who switch sides, for one reason or another.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm like, I'm gonna dive into that book because I need to know. For me right now, I feel like everybody that's on the side is there for a good reason. But to see, I don't see switches happening. Like if I find out Kristen Cole is gonna come back to the blacks, I'm causing hell. I'm gonna get into this show somehow and causing some type of problem because I don't want that. I need Kristen Cole to be Sir Crispy by right? Extra Crispy Dubai Dragon Fire.
Yeah, like stabbed in the back by his own men or something.
Absolutely. I can't stand him either. And Otto as well.
Otto, yeah, well, I don't know that Otto's gonna. I don't know. Well, see, it depends. So here's the thing, though, is that the whole like Dance of Dragons doesn't really last very long. You know, it's
Hmm.
like it's like 2 years
Oh wow.
and it's
Okay.
over. So so they're gonna have to like. I mean, granted, so they want to do 3 more seasons of this story.
Just
So
because I heard that House of Dragon, like, it's not gonna end with these sets of people, these characters. So
right, they're gonna. I think it's gonna like morph into like an anthology series, so to speak. You know what? So it's gonna be like there are other Targaryen stories that we can tell.
within House
The
of the
Dance of Dragons is one of them, and it's going to be 4 seasons. And then when that's done, we can tell another. I mean, because if you think about it, there's a lot of Targaryen stories they could tell. They could tell the story of the
Game Chopper.
conquest. They could tell a story of what happens. Robert's Rebellion. They could tell a story of something that happened in Valeria. They could tell a story of the Blackfire Revolt.
They
I
can
mean,
talk
there's
about how Master Aemon and also the Three Eye Raven came to be where they are now because they're
exactly
originally
like
Targaryen.
there's a ton of stories and time periods
Imagine.
that they can cover, you know. But this story that they're going to tell over 4 seasons is really, now that it's kicked off, right? So from the time of the Battle of Shipbreaker Bay, till the end, where the last guy sitting on the Iron Throne, um, is
You
really
said
only
I
two
used to say,
is last person is really only 2 years, and so they have to, and granted, that's only, so it's three seasons worth of episodes, like 30 hours, but they have said, one, there's not going to be time jumps like
yeah,
we
now we're
had
done
this
with
season,
side jumps. Yeah.
so it's really going to be, so I would imagine there's going to be, some pretty big moves kind of early to mid second season, where the board's going to change a lot, because there is stuff that happens early in the Dance of Dragons, right? So we're in 129 AC. So the end of 129, the beginning of 130. There's a lot of stuff going on there, and that's going to be like right where the beginning of the second season lives.
About one battle already in my mind. I'm like, oh my goodness. I just read it today, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I'm willing to watch that scene. I'll tell you afterwards too.
Yeah, I'm wondering what you're thinking. Like,
I
I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, and these battles have like really great names. You know what I'm saying? There's like you know, the Battle of the Gullet, and the battle over God's Eye, and the storming of the Dragon Pit, and I mean, there's a lot of really cool battle names, coming up.
oh my goodness, I'm looking forward to that. Oh man, that's yeah. I'm just we're in for a big ride. Yeah. I feel like this is gonna be some good pure. And they said too that the second season is gonna be like peak Game of Thrones type of stuff. Like because we
Right,
earned it. That's why I love that. So you guys went through season one. It was a slow build. It was a build. It was a prologue. Prologue, prelogue, whatever it's called. But this next season, it's all about business now. Okay, you had your appetizers. Now it's time for the main meal, and I'm hungry.
right. No, and yeah, I think I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack and a lot to kind of think, and I think, guys, we're not done. I think we're gonna at least have another episode in
Yes,
this series, just to kind of, after we sit on it a little bit, to kind of unpack it and think about where we're going and where we're going forward.
yes. I'm gonna be looking forward to that one too. Cause Mike, I still have questions, but this time I think I'm gonna write these questions down so I can formally ask you. Mike, by the way, he's a walking encyclopedia. So especially when it comes to this stuff, he has all the answers. He's a Grand Maester Mike. That's my new nickname for you.
I don't know about all that, but okay. Grandmasters don't always fare well.
Ooh, oh, oh, yeah. Oh my goodness, are we talking about my boy? Or was it Oro? I can't. Oris. I don't even know his name well. From done in by episode. No, he wasn't a Grand Maester. He was the Master of Coin. I'm thinking of. Oops, my bad.
Oh, Beesbury? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about like Pycelle,
Oh, and the other guy too. I forgot his name.
Yeah, and if I don't remember exactly, but I think this existing guy we have here, I don't think he does too well either.
Oh boy. Well, good because he was trifling.
Yeah, but maybe Sam Tarley turns that around.
Hopefully, he's such a humble man. I love Sam Tarly. And it's good. Oh, we're expecting to be. We're gonna be traveling to Winterfell next season.
What's that?
We're gonna be going to.
Yeah, I thought it would have been cool if at this point, like at some point in this episode, if they had just like shown like Jace like I don't know like landing his dragon and then like turning around and like Winterfell was there or something like that. Not to see anybody, but at least to just kind of give us that little throwback. You
That
know,
would be amazing.
that would have been cool. But it's okay. I guess we can wait.
We're patient. We're gonna be getting a lot of people. Daron Hightower will be showing up.
Yeah, Craig Stark.
Craig
Stark.
Stark.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters coming.
Oh, yes, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. It's gonna be good.
So, all right, so guys, so we're gonna wrap it, but like I said, we're gonna be back next week. Just kind of a final follow up and thoughts, and then so we'll see you then. Thanks for listening.
See ya then, y'all.